Get fired on our set doing that. All right. Let me know when you're ready. You good to go?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Peter.
Hey, Michael.
How are you?
I'm very well.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about your performing career. When did you start? How did you get started?
Look, I started performing when I was very young, and I had the joy of working with my mother on stage. In fact, I was about 6 or 7 in the Tamworth Musical Society. And but I expect I started professionally when I was about 20, and I graduated from NIDA and began my career at the Queensland Theatre Company. And then I went on to do a lot of film and television after that, and then I sort of fell into musicals and spent about 12 years working for producers of major sort of blockbuster musicals. And then the last 10 years or so, I've done a lot more of my own work. I've produced a lot of things, and I've now directed my very first film, which has been a real treat.
Tell me a little bit about that. It's a very storied career. What are some of the highlights? What are some of the moments that you remember the most?
Look, the really memorable moments of my career are usually the ones I'm doing now, because I have such a bad memory. I have trouble remembering what they were like in the past. But seriously, I think there's probably been half a dozen highlights over the years. The first one would have been working with Richard Harris in a production of Camelot, which toured Australia back in the 80s, and I was a very young actor, and he taught me an enormous amount of skills, I expect, on stage. He was a big, bold, risk-taking actor, and he inspired me. He certainly was a mentor for me. And then I can't go past musicals like Les Miserables and Miss Saigon, for instance. Both of those musicals tend to kind of infiltrate your mind and soul, particularly Les Mis, which has such great things to sing about and a great story to tell. Miss Saigon, again, is I loved because it was such a gritty kind of musical, wartime musical, a bit unusual to be in that sort of thing. Great music and fabulous people, mainly Filipino cast in Sydney and around the world, in fact. Most of the cast are made up of these wonderful performers from the Philippines. Very spiritual people, and the whole experience was very spiritual in all sorts of ways, which made it just very special. Performing in London in The Phantom of the Opera was certainly a highlight. Playing the Phantom, sort of an iconic role, and it probably wasn't as much fun as a range of other roles, but it certainly is a great sort of career highlight to have had. I expect finally, of course, directing Freedom, which is, I think, probably the highlight. It's always the latest thing I've done, but it certainly is. It took me just right out of my comfort zone and into a totally different world. I'd certainly, acted on screen before, but jumping across from the performing arts, live performing arts, into film was an extraordinary experience.
What was it like directing your first feature film?
It was really thrilling to direct a feature film. I think for anyone who has their first time anything is thrilling. But coming from another discipline in the performing arts, particularly from music and acting and producing, it certainly it wasn't in any way terrifying, but it was certainly challenging. But I was lucky because I was surrounded by some really wonderful people, particularly as it was filmed in America. Americans are extraordinarily welcoming to people who come from other disciplines and very respectful of that. And that made the collaboration and the work extremely satisfying, but also it felt that I was being valued as an artist in the work. So I discovered just how collaborative making a film is, and if you are open to that, if you are generous and people are generous around you, the experience can be really wonderful. And this particular experience was certainly that.
Tell us about that journey.
It was about 4 or 5 years ago that I had a yearning to be part of filmmaking, and I was inspired by my neighbour. We used to go cycling together. And we had a dream that wouldn't it be wouldn't it be exciting to infiltrate American filmmaking and try and make films that change people's lives? We were both kind of I certainly had come from a background that had dealt with causes and activism, etc., over the years. And the idea of making film was where you can reach a whole lot of people in a very powerful way, more so than, for instance, live theatre. So we had this dream, and it sort of came true, and we are now here. I've sort of had a 101 experience of filmmaking over the last 2 years, and that experience has now given me an enormous amount of confidence, as well as knowledge, and also a network of really wonderful people who are, for some odd reason, really happy to work with me. So we hope to be making, more films, like this, and other sort of films over the next few years.
So tell us about production. Where was the film shot?
Freedom, the movie, was shot in Connecticut, in America, in the States, north of New York, for those of you who don't know where Connecticut is. And we based ourselves there in New Haven, and we spent this most extraordinary time in this beautiful, beautiful part of the world, filming the most beautiful looking scenes you've probably seen on film. A lot of that was to do with the fact that our director of photography was Dean Cundy. And Dean came from LA over to Connecticut to join us on the production as the DOP, and he just turned Connecticut into just the most beautiful place on earth.
Great. You worked with Cuba Gooding Jr. Tell us, what was it like to work with an Academy Award-winning actor?
The thing about the film was I was challenged by the notion and the fascinating experience of having to direct an Academy Award-winning actor, Cuba Gooding Jr. Fabulous guy, fabulous actor. But here I am on set, and I get to the point where I've actually got to say to him, I'd like you to do something different, like actually tell him to act better, which is not true. But certainly there was a point where I had to actually direct him, and I did run through my mind, hell's bells, here I am, a boy from Sydney, boy from Tamworth, if you like, suddenly in a situation where I'm directing an Academy Award-winning actor, and it was thrilling. And again, Cuba, such a generous guy, such a generous actor, we had a very, very collaborative experience as a director-actor. Our relationship was so good on set, and it became a really great learning experience for me as a director, working with an actor of that calibre. So again, it's a bit of a confidence game too, isn't it, when you're thrust into that situation. So I was confident.
Great. Tell us about your overall vision for Freedom.
We have a particular desire for the movie Freedom to reach a lot of people in a lot of different ways. It's a story that works on various different levels. It offers up a lot of different rewards to people who come and see it from different perspectives. It certainly is a film that carries with it a great spiritual journey, and an opportunity for the characters to discover a whole lot about themselves and their sort of internal spiritual nature. But also it bluntly tells of the horrors of slavery and the idea that freedom is something that is certainly worth fighting for, and is something which many people have been without and continue to be without. So really for the film, I'm hoping that we can make a difference to people in their lives, both personally, but also get them to become very much aware of the crisis of slavery around the world in modern times. So we've used the history of the Underground Railroad and the way they helped, the way ordinary people committed themselves to ending slavery, and we're trying to have that issue very present in people's minds when they leave the theatre, that they commit themselves also to making a difference in the world and committing themselves to ending modern slavery.
Great. Both those.
6 minutes.
Final, yeah, we're good. This is the last question. Perfect. Final question, Peter. In terms of a global audience, how do you think this film will fare? Is it have a universal appeal? Is it going to play with a certain audience? How do you see it in a global perspective?
Freedom is quintessentially an American story. It's based very much in the historical world of slavery in the 1800s, and it tells a pretty horrific story of slaves being transported across from Africa to America 100 years before. And so the story is certainly centered in that whole American culture and American history. But the element of John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace, and his story, which makes up about a third of the film, and inspires the characters living 100 years later, and also, of course, has inspired characters, ordinary people around the world 200 years later, or nearly 300 years later if we think of now. And so the civil rights movement has certainly been inspired by that song, and certainly that song has been used as an anthem in that fight for freedom. So the story and the movie, I think, has great global appeal because of that. And also people are fascinated by that history of slavery in America. You'd think that we would learn that when we discover that history that slavery shouldn't continue to exist, but of course it does. So it's that nexus, or that coming together of that historical story and how it plays out in modern times, I think makes the film very unique and certainly of global appeal.
Would you like to say anything else?
No, I think I've said enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.